Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Joe Polish, Roland Frazier, and Zach Benson. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 26 years. So if you're a company that has software, a product, or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. You could email my team at welcome@goldsteinpc.com to explore if it's a match to work together. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Mike Alden. Mike built the multi-million-dollar marketing company that landed him on the Inc. magazine list 3 years in a row as one of the nation's fastest growing private companies. He's also a three-time best-selling author on both the Wall Street Journal and the USA Today book lists. He's also launched and pitched dozens of successful products in a variety of advertising mediums. I'm very pleased to welcome here today Mike Alden. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks so much for having me, man. And I'm really glad to connect, and especially how we connected too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could talk about that a bit. So we connected on Clubhouse, which
That's it.
You know, I mean, by the time that this episode posts, it might be way more widespread than it is now because it's just growing so fast. And
it's an amazing medium, man.
It really is, and it's funny. Like, it's a platform that I'm on a good portion of every day, and I see people around like you, and I feel like we were like in a freshman class together, like hanging out during Christmas week. You know, when like there was a bunch of us that were just around almost all the time. And we're in these rooms where there were business leaders of all kinds and then other people asking questions. And so like, you know, we're a certain type of founding crew, I guess, over there. And
yeah, the beginning. I mean, we were there pretty early. So, and it's just wild to see. So depending on when you're listening to this, if you're not on Clubhouse, you need to be on it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, but yeah, I mean, and it's kind of funny too, that, Clubhouse is an audio only application, which is kind of very similar to podcasting, but it's like podcasting where all of a sudden someone else might pop up in the middle of our conversation. Like, could be Grant Cardone.
Could be, Tiffany Haddish just pops into a room, and, Floyd Mayweather just pops into a room. I mean, it's a wild app, and it's truly amazing. I scream from the rooftops about things that I find that I feel as though can add value to people's lives. And some people listen, some people don't. So let's hope that people listen. Go to, I don't even know how you do it. You just go to if you have an Apple right now, you got to download the app. By the way, we have nothing to do with Clubhouse. We just met on Clubhouse, and we're just excited. We're just excited about it. So.
Right. Which is great. Like when you could launch a business that has your customers promoting it for you, when people you make people true believers such that they're telling everybody, you've got to be on Clubhouse. Like that's the greatest, right? Finding that type of sticky solution, let's say, or product, right?
Yeah.
And so you've been involved in products from the very beginning. You've been involved in products from their inception. I mean, what are some experiences you've had like that with something that just was so exciting that you were, that it almost seemed like the public would have promoted for you once they knew of what it was?
Yeah, that's a rare thing, and I don't necessarily know that any of my products really ever came to that. I mean, that's something, again, I think you're in a rarefied, position when that happens. And when your product can truly go back to the very essence of word of mouth marketing, which is still the most powerful form of marketing that there is. If you can get something there, I mean, that's when things become super profitable, because what I've done with my businesses is we spent, millions and millions and well, I think we spent close to 150 million so far on advertising to get people interested in our products. And that's just another thing that people don't realize what is going on with Clubhouse, or what has happened with other products, or even like Facebook or things like that. But people don't realize too, like even Amazon was buying Google ads, right? So you have to advertise in order to kind of get that momentum. I don't even know the origins of Clubhouse. You probably do, but I don't even know how it happened. But it was me. It was a friend of a friend that said I should get involved. It was through social media, and I just saw the opportunity, and it's pretty awesome. So it's really hard to do that, to get to that status. But if you get it, they got to reach out to guys like you, or more maybe more like estate planning attorneys to figure things out, because the cash will be ridiculous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think you hit on a couple of really important things there. And one is the value of word of mouth marketing, where just getting other people to tell you your tale for you. And the other thing you hit on too was just about like you said, you've paid $150 million for ads, and it is all about engagement. And so you have to expect going to business that you're going to pay for that engagement. Like even if you're selling a product on Amazon, you have to pay for pay-per-click. You can't just rely on people searching for you anymore. And when you can use social media of some form to get free engagement, that's just awesome. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the whole build it and they will come type thing. If they come first, that's even better before you even build it. But yeah, you have to figure out a way to essentially subsidize, in essence, your paid media for non-paid media, so that you can grow your brand and have more profit. In fact, we keep talking about Clubhouse about that. And you can spend 150 million like I have, and have a very, very small profit margin, or maybe you can even spend a lot less and have a much higher profit margin. And in the latter, you actually might be in a better position. And it's funny because at 45 years old, and somebody who has built, a pretty big business and had hundreds of employees, I'm at this stage in my career, in my life, where I realize it's not necessarily about spending all that money and generating all that revenue. It's like, all right, how much can you keep? How much can you give to your employees or your family or what have you? That's really the important part. And a lot of times for me in my life, it's always been, I learn things the hard way sometimes. It just is what it is.
Yeah. So, and in this case, learning things the hard way is by, I guess, generating lots of revenue and having lots of expenses to match.
Yeah, I'm sitting here in a studio that we built out. Behind me is a television studio that probably cost $500,000 to build, and quite candidly, it's kind of obsolete. I mean, it's got all the lights, it's got multiple sets, we got cameras, we got all that stuff, but you don't even need it anymore. I'm guessing you're sitting in an office, but most people, they're doing this stuff out of their house. And it's really interesting to watch and to see. I was a couple of years ago, I went and visited a friend of mine who was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar business. And I go to his house. He had 2 houses in the Hollywood Hills, like right next to each other. He had Ferraris and all these things, like just everything you can imagine. It's like exactly what you would see in the movies, and he's the CEO of this company. And one thing I realized after just hanging out with him for 3 days, no offices, none. They had no offices. He was taking meetings with high level people and doing multi-million-dollar deals in his kitchen. And I came back and my mind was blown. At one point in this building that I'm sitting in right now, I had almost 25,000 square feet, excuse me. And, because I had all these employees and I call centers and all this other stuff, the world has changed, man. Like you don't need that stuff anymore. And it's great because if you're a young entrepreneur, the barrier of entry is so low right now. It's remarkable. It's such a great opportunity, but it's also, kind of intimidating if you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The world has changed. And like, even before this year, right? The world changed dramatically this year, but even before this year, it's so different than, let's say 20 years ago, right? When launching a product, you need to have space. You need to have retail space, or you need to have a warehouse if you're going to sell that manner. But and if you wanted to sell a product, like, you either needed to get in touch with the retailers and get those distribution channels open, or you had to put ad in a magazine or something like that. It's like so different from what it is now, where you literally can, without leaving your home, have a product made for you, get it sent to Amazon for Amazon fulfillment, create a listing, start a pay-per-click campaign to drive traffic towards your listings, and have a business. And you
can do it all from your couch.
Facilities. Yeah. I mean, well, I guess it depends on the couch, but yeah, you could do it from, as long as you could work while you're sitting on that couch and not get.
You got a laptop, it's crazy, man. You got a laptop. Some of these people are actually building businesses with just this little thing right here. So the potential is there, and again, the barrier of entry is crazy. I mean, I got cameras in that room over there that, when we bought them, they were significantly cut as far as the pricing, but now they're obsolete again, and it's just, and you know what, I can buy those probably same cameras for like $500, and I paid $5,000 for them a couple of years ago.
Right.
And before that they were $70,000. And so now it's this. You know what I mean? Like, I was just telling you, I was going straight to camera on some stuff for one of my businesses, and I'm looking. I was doing it literally on the app that we're on. I was doing it on Zoom. I didn't even light up my own cameras because, one, I don't even have anybody here. No one's here, So I needed to do it myself. I can barely figure out how to turn the cameras on, let alone run them and take the cards out and all this other stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's a wild time to be alive and to be a part of really any business in any avenue, whether it's service-based business or it's a physical product. It doesn't really matter. It's just a great time to be alive.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of, as you noted, it's like your phone can take better video than the cameras that you bought years ago. You can set up distribution channels, like, from by opening up a website and creating an account, where it used to take meetings and getting into the right person. And it's become that much more accessible for people that have ideas to take an idea and to launch it. So I guess let's talk about that. Let's talk about like what it takes to take an idea and launch it. So like, you've been involved in lots of products from the ground up. I know some are in the supplement space, and kind of, I guess, what's your experience with taking something from the initial concept and then at the very least validating that you are onto something?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you're right. What you're saying earlier is there's I heard, someone once said to me, if you want to go broke really quickly, have a bunch of ideas, right? And as an entrepreneur, we have ideas all the time, and sometimes because of maybe who we are and our DNA, and we might be a little bit impulsive, and that's definitely me, So I've had ideas. I'll give you an idea that was a crazy one. Okay, a few years ago. Actually, wow, now I think about it, 7 years ago. Is it 7? Maybe.
Funny how that
5 years.
Right?
I'm sorry, 5 years ago, I got the 40 Under 40 award here in Boston, the Boston Business Journal. And one of the other recipients, I think there was 40 of us, right? Was the founder of a little known company called DraftKings. And I wanted to pitch him on doing an infomercial. And so what I decided to do is when I got up on your acceptance speech could be 3 words. After those 3 words, it was $25 a word. It was a way for them to raise money, right? So I get up and I accept my award, and I say, you know what? I don't really care about how much it costs, because I won a ton of money on DraftKings.com last night. So what did that do? I got his attention, right? So I get off the stage, and it's Jason Robbins is his name. And he comes up to me, and we start talking, and we did not hit it off. Like, we just did not connect. We just did not connect. And, there's alcohol flowing and things like this. And I came home and I was like, fuck this guy. Hopefully I could swear, I'm from Boston, and I was so mad that he literally, I'm literally talking to him. I'm telling you, and I don't get that offended that easily. And he literally just turned around and just stopped talking to me as we were in the middle of a conversation, you know? And so I come home and I was telling one of my relatives this whole fiasco that happened. And he says to me, he says, Mike, I actually make money on daily fantasy sports. It's like, it's a kind of a side hustle for me. In fact, I write a blog about it. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, you know about this world? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, well, what's the blog called? He's like, it's called Draft Demons. I'm like, that's a cool name. That's a great name. And it's a great name that we can trademark. Let's see if we can get the domain. So we get the domain. And I said, you know what, man, let's fucking go after DraftKings, right? Like I'm going to take my ego and my impulse because I have an idea and I'm going to go after DraftKings. Okay. And that was an insane proposition. I wrapped NASCARs. I spent, probably $1 million or more in developing software, which is actually a small number. And our kind of competitive advantage was going to be NASCAR because I had a relationship with NASCAR, still do. And DraftKings wasn't doing NASCAR. Okay. So we get to our big push was going to, and our big kind of unveiling was going to be the Daytona 500, right? Mm-hmm. Literally, we get to days before, and the software company that we hired went out of business. And not only did they go out of business, they just shut the doors.
Wow.
And then that was it. That was it. Like everything went down, and I had already spent so much money, and so if you have an idea, I'm a practitioner of transcendental meditation, and when I first learned it, the teacher, professor, whatever you want to call them, said, look, you're gonna get a lot of ideas that are gonna flow through your brain. A lot of this happens when we just any form of meditation. Don't act on them right away. If you want to write them down, that's cool. Think about them. Don't act on them right away. So I would say to any
notice the thought come and let it go.
Let it go. If it's cool, write it down and then think about it. And I've launched I bought a company in Ohio that developed distilled spirits for people. Like if you had an idea, like, hey, you wanted to do, an adult chocolate milk. Like if that's what you wanted to do, you come to us and we would do that for you. I launched the vodka and that was a beautiful thing. And we had a lot of fun with it. I backed an artist and I said, well, I'm going to take my marketing know-how, all just, great ideas that at least that I thought that they were. And we made a run at them and we put our best foot forward, but they all failed. And I don't like to use the term failure because I learned that from Zig Ziglar. It's more about, we call them temporary defeats. And there's a lot of things, it's cliche-ish, but there's a lot of things you can learn from them. But when you think about it, and when I start to add up the amount of money that I've spent, I wish I had it back. Mm-hmm. And I also wish I was, sitting here today, I wish I had that knowledge, back then. They always say, I wish I knew it back then. And that's just the life of an entrepreneur though. I also look at it like research and development, because as an entrepreneur, you got to try new stuff. You just have to. A lot of people say, stay in your lane, focus on what you're good at. And, okay, that there's some certain value to that. But if you don't go outside of your lane, if you don't think outside the box, you're never going to know if what you thought or your idea was in fact, valid. So there's nothing wrong with taking it to a point where there is proof of concept. If you can get to proof of concept, then from there, I think you have something.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so much gold in there, right? And having ideas, following through on them and having them fail. And there's different flavors of failure, right? There's just the non-judged or non-judgmental act of failure. It's like it didn't work out, right? And that's something that we learn from. But then there's failure as like an emotional like devastation, like where it's like I failed and I'm never going to do anything good. So like, it kind of depends where you land, right? Like some people like every successful business person fails as like a state of fact. And then they move on from it. They learn from it. But some people, failure is just a devastating, like emotional state attached to it. Yeah. And I guess the real choice is whether you do that, whether you attach that emotion to it, or whether you consider it to be a valuable lesson. Like all of those things that you did, and I know you wish you had the money back, but like you gave it a fair shot. It could have also been successful, and you also learned things which helped you in your future businesses. And you're not done yet, right?
No, I mean, I get
experiences that are contributing to what you're doing today.
Exactly. You know, again, if you really, I think one good way to look at it is it's like research and development, and it
Mhm.
really is. And you learn things that you would not have learned. And it is a process, and you are in fact going to fail in the factual sense and the emotional sense over and over and over again. In fact, I wrote an article for a magazine called Boston Man Magazine, and the title of it is "I'm a Great Loser." And my mom's like, "Mike, why are you saying that? Why are you saying that?" Well, you know, I lose more times than I win. In fact, I lose 99% of the time. And I look, if anybody tells you that's just a part of the process, it's okay, and then you'll get through it. It hurts, man.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It hurts.
Yep.
You literally physically feel it. No, a lot of people don't talk about it. I talk about it all the time because I feel like most entrepreneurs and most business people are just they're not transparent, and they love to show the cars and the Rollses, and they love talking. You and I were talking about revenue and things like that. You know, I'm like that as well, but I'm also open, honest, and candid to the point where it's probably even too much. But I think people need to understand that the life of an entrepreneur is not for everybody, and it hurts. But if you can get there, and if you can get to the point where you're truly supporting your lifestyle, it's a great thing. You know, I can do what I want when I want. I don't really have a boss. Do I? And here's the other thing too. You always have to answer to somebody, you know, whether it's a bank or whether I still have to answer to people, but I do what I want when I want. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing. And you just have to understand that you will have the peaks and valleys, and recognize it. When you're going through those valleys, I don't care what anybody says, it just hurts.
Yep. No, I get it. And then it's just about resilience, right? It's about bouncing back from it, not getting stuck in it. I mean, it hurts. And what some people do though is they dwell in it and they stay in it. But the ability to bounce back, to live another day, to try another whatever, makes all the difference.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's just throughout history, there's just the most influential people in history. I mean, look at Elon Musk, right? You know, he's the richest man in the world, and you know, he's going back and forth now with Bezos. And you know, a year ago, Tesla was looking like it was going to fail. You know, and so it's a part of the journey, and it is a part of the lifestyle of an entrepreneur. And just to be able to recognize that you are going to feel that pain. It makes it more palatable. It makes it more so that you can actually understand it, so that your brain can process it and say, okay, you know, I've been through hell and back in my businesses, and I've lost millions, and I've had horrific things happen throughout the years. And, you know, I had a friend who's no longer with us, and he said to me, Mike, you know what? You'll be okay, man. And I just get chills just thinking about it. I remember where I was standing. I was in front of my garage in this massive house that I built in a private neighborhood in the same town that I grew up in, like living in the projects. And I was standing there, and I put my house on the market a few years ago because I got killed financially. And he just said, you'll be okay. And you will be okay. You know, I think it was Winston Churchill said, if you're going to go through hell, you might as well go all the way through. and that's what happens, you know?
Right. Exactly. I mean, it's like life always turns out the way that it does. You can count on life to turn out.
Yeah, and it does, and it will get better. I think there's also too, it's interesting how this conversation is going. I think that, you know, there has to be, you know, a pretty good kind of balance between optimism and realism, you know, because a lot of entrepreneurs are optimistic to the point where they're actually a sociopathic as well. And so, you know, meaning they just don't care about anybody else. It's just going to work out. And I've been around guys like that, and some of those guys are actually in jail. You know, right. So it isn't always just going to work out. It isn't always just going to get better unless you do something about it too. Because when you're in that pain and when you're going through that stuff and you want to crumble up and sit in the fetal position in your basement, like I've wanted to do like dozens of times, and sometimes I have, but you got to pull yourself up and say, like, what else are you going to do? Like, are you just going to give up? You know what I mean? That's the other part. Like I always say to myself, like, what else am I going to do? You know, and so like, you know, you and I, you know, I'm a lawyer, I keep my license active, but I'm not going to practice law. No one's going to hire me. I mean, I haven't really practiced law in a long time. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a sales guy. It's what I do. I sell stuff. So right. You just got to figure it out and just put your big boy pants on, suck it up, deal with the pain. And ultimately you will get through the other side. But when you're going through it, man, like I said before, it's not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of wisdom there. And I agree. It's like, just, you know, Pollyanna painting on like a positive spin on everything doesn't help anyone, and it's not real. It's not authentic. It's like,
it's not. And there are too many people out there that do. Again, it's too much. They lay it on thick. And in fact, this is going to maybe, I think people sometimes look, I'm a super positive guy. I've written self-help books. I believe in the power of positivity, Norman Vincent Peale, like I believe in that stuff. And by the way, that stuff works, but there also has to be, again, a delicate balance of like reality. And I think people, when they go to let's say a Tony Robbins event or one of these other, rah-rah type things that are very helpful for people. And a lot of times what you'll find, and Tony Robbins will probably admit this, is they're all fired up. They're there for 7 days and they leave and 99% of the people don't do anything. And that's the hardest part is you can get all excited but it's about being consistent. It's one of my other books called 5% More. I realized that, we've been in rooms with Grant Cardone. I'm actually friends with Grant. I've been on his program called Power Players. He's been on my podcast twice. I can text him if I need to, but his book 10X, I think a lot of people misunderstand what he's really saying is, a lot of people think that you can just go all in on something, and that's wrong. In fact, our brains don't work that way. Our brains work best when you compound on that, when you just take those small steps and then compound on them over and over again. And it's really hard because if you want to accelerate super fast and you think, well, I only have so much time, the power of compounding is amazing. Again, that whole, save a penny a day and compound and add to it every single day. You have $5.3 million in 30 days. And in fact, my wife said to me, she goes, "You're a lawyer for a reason," because I've always said I'm bad in math. She's like, the math, that doesn't make sense. I go, do it. Just do it. Take a penny a day and double it every single day. You'll have 5.3 million. So the power and the power of compounding, I think, is really what people need to understand is when you're in those tough spots or when you're growing a business, take those baby steps. You don't have to 10X what you're doing every day. And by the way, nobody can do it. You can't 10X forever. You're going to burn out physically, mentally. That's science. That's anatomy. That's just, you know what I mean? And unless you're on some sort of performance enhancing drugs, and again, you'll burn out at some point. So what I say to people is like, let's take baby steps. Let's compound on it over time. And then you're going to get there. You'll get that 10X. You just don't need to do it all at once because it's not sustainable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so let's talk about bestseller secrets. I know this is like information that has been, that you've had and that you've been kind of talking about for years, but it seems like its day has come back around. So tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too. Like when you talk about, the businesses that you get involved in and the things that you learn and the doors that open or the new doors that that come your way. And, with my first book, Ask More, Get More, I own a marketing firm. Again, we've done hundreds of millions and who cares? Because what's the profit, right? But we have. And when I launched my first book, I'm like, the title's awesome, right? The cover's awesome. It's over there somewhere. It's the yellow one. The content's like, okay, it's pretty good, for my first book. I got a publishing deal. I was super excited. And, I'm a kid from the projects. The fact that I'm even here still on this planet is just a remarkable thing. And, I was like, I'm going to take all this knowledge and all of our power, and we are going to be a number one New York Times bestseller. Like it was a foregone conclusion. It was going to happen. And I realized really quickly that marketing gadgets, marketing supplements, marketing services, it's a different world when you're marketing and more importantly, selling books. And so I took it upon myself like a good entrepreneur and I spent millions of dollars. Again, I've said this before, I kind of wish I had it back, but it got me here today. I spent millions of dollars trying to figure out how do I compete with the big boys? Like, how do I compete with the big time publishers? My first publisher is Greenleaf. They're what they call a hybrid publisher or a vanity publisher. They're not big, but they gave me an opportunity. And what I figured out is that there is a method, just like anything in business, there is a method that nobody wants to tell you about. And so, I've written 6 books and I decided that, and by the way, my books are, I'm a 3-time Wall Street Journal, USA Today bestseller. My books have been number 1 on Amazon hundreds of times. I've held the top 5 against all books in the world dozens of times. My last book, Blueprint to Business, was the number 1 book in the world. Barack Obama was behind me. And there's a method to it. And it is a military operation if you're trying to get to like things like New York Times or Wall Street Journal, USA Today. And I realized that most people don't know that information, and it's painful when you spend all this money and when you launch your book and nobody cares. It's hard to say it's a negative thing. I haven't written a bunch of books. I can guarantee that nobody cares about your book because you're a lawyer. I'm just like, you know, so the only people that are going to buy your book are like, oh, I'm an IP, like, you know, the only people that are buying your, again, I'm not picking on you, but I just know what it's, okay. I just know what it's like to put literally years of effort and money and blood, sweat and tears into something. And then it just flops. And that happened with my first book, which went on to do great things and it's been sold all over the world and is a Wall Street Journal, USA Today bestseller. So I wrote my book, Bestseller Secrets, to just really kind of level the playing field and to show people that, and show authors specifically, you know, that you can become a bona fide, legitimate bestseller. The term bestseller has been bastardized, but what I'm saying is an actual, verifiable, legitimate bestseller, whether that be Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, Wall Street, USA Today. It can be done. And the best part is most of it you can do actually on your own. I spent millions of dollars doing it. I actually give the book away for free. So for those people who are listening or watching, you just go to bestsellersecretsbook.com and, you know, they can download the book. And it's not like one of these 8-page things. It's 27,000 words, which is just over 100 and something pages. It's an actual book that gives you the blueprint of everything that I've done. It's not some shit little 8.5 by 11.
I know what you mean. When I tell people I'll send you a copy of my book, they expect like a 32-page book with about 100 words on each page.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, you know, most
oh, it's a real book.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm a lawyer.
Yeah, like, what did you think? You know?
Yeah, but you know, again, you're a lawyer. You know, been doing it for 26 years, and you wrote it for the ABA. Like, it's got to be of substance, right?
Right. And so, but still, people have come to expect very little from like my book. You know,
right?
And what you put your heart into it and you write a real book. It's just kind of funny that they respond that way. But it sounds like you figured out a lot about what works there. What
I have.
Should know.
Yeah, and it's, you know, and it's fun and it's exciting. And when we talk about, again, go back to some of these failures or temporary defeats that I've had, I wouldn't be here today. And by the way, I've done this also for dozens of authors. I just did it for Kevin Harrington, got his book to Wall Street Journal, USA Today. I've done it for some other big time authors, like a guy named Ram Charan, and he got him to #1 on the Wall Street Journal. I did it for this other like no name guy. He's not a no name guy, but just self-published guys and people that have had their books out for a couple years, because when you put that type of effort in a book that you want to get out there and you want people to have that information, you feel like your book's going to change the world or it's going to help people, and then you put it out there and it does nothing, it's devastating. And a lot of authors have no idea what to do. I've had dozens and dozens of authors on my podcast, a lot of New York Times bestsellers, but a lot of guys that are, I had a guy who was a professor at MIT, brilliant guy. The book's amazing. It's such a great book. And he's with a huge publisher. Didn't do anything, nothing. And it happens all the time. So I'm really super passionate about it because, one, I'm great at it. And two, I know what it's like because I've done it myself. And so, yeah, that's none of this stuff would have happened if I hadn't have had those temporary defeats that cost me even more of millions back in the day. I mean, I did insane things with my books. I wrapped NASCARs. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to make sure that my books are in what they call premium placement and things like Hudson News and Barnes and Noble. And I just show people all the pitfalls and the things, the mistakes that I've made. And I feel like if I give this information to people, it's going to help them. They're not in competition with me. I'm not competing with anybody else, whether it's a cookbook, it doesn't, I wrote a children's book with my daughter. I did the same thing. And if you want to get that information out to people, my book, Bestseller Secrets, really shows people how to do it. And again, I'm giving it away for free. My accountant's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, there's other ways we can help people.
Right. That's awesome. So if people want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, or get that free book, Bestseller Secrets, how do they go about doing so?
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to reach out to me, I'm pretty much everywhere. It's at Mike Alden 2012. That's where I pretty much kind of got it all in on social media. So you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on LinkedIn. Mike Alden. If you're interested in the book, you can just go to bestsellersecretsbook.com. You just download it. There is a small processing fee, but it's no big deal. Again, I've spent millions kind of figuring this stuff out. Or again, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Clubhouse. I'm everywhere. I'm probably the most active right now on Instagram. I'd love to just, connect with the people that you serve. And hopefully I can help. If you have any questions about anything, if you want to reach out to me, send me a direct message and I'll do my best to get back to you.
That's awesome. Mike, really appreciate you being here, sharing your story, sharing some really helpful information, and sharing about your book, Bestseller Secrets. Thanks so much for being here, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.